I like my job because when you go home, you know you made a difference.
Because it's just happy. It's nice knowing it's a very rewarding job. Very rewarding when you've helped. It could be like the tiniest thing that you've helped someone with, but it's like massive to them.
Just generally making that difference, because like I say, some people don't see anybody, or they've got a son that lives 40 miles away that comes on a Wednesday, you know, and that's all they see in general. And it's just nice that you made a bit of a difference to them, you know, conversation, chat.
They are brilliant. Richard, the carer there, and Leah, the carer there, they are absolutely brilliant. I can't fault them.
It can be a very stressful job, but on the other hand, you get more rewards out of it than you do stressfulness. And it's nice going to service users and smile at you. You made the day. If they walk in and they smile at you, you know you've done something right.
I actually did something completely different before, but because I looked after my grandma a lot, so it like enforced me to go in and help other people. So if I could do it for my grandma, I'd do it for everyone else. And best job I've had so far, to be honest.
Come in and I might be feeling a bit low, and Richard will say, "Good morning, Doris," and I'll say, "Good morning, Richard, good morning, Leah," and I might be feeling a bit low, and then all of a sudden, them just saying them words, "Good morning," and "How are you today?" and they cheer me up. Really, really lovely.
It's like a lot of people, I think, "Oh God, Karen, I couldn't do that." But community is so much different. Like some people will just go and see you to have a chat with them because they're lonely and they just want to see someone through the day. It's not all like just all physical work. Sometimes it's social and interacting with them. It is quite flexible. I mean, I don't have to dedicate. If I wanted to dedicate my life to it, you can, but you don't always have to as well.
Sometimes I feel like I could put my arms around them and cuddle them because they're that good. And anybody that says they ain't, come and see me, I tell you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and we'll get started. This Policy Committee. The first thing on the agenda are the minutes of the last meeting of the Policy Committee. Initially, just to unfortunately, I'm standing in for Ben. Ben has been called down to Westminster on a 3-line whip. I don't exactly know why, but he has been, and so therefore I'm standing in as the chairman of the Policy Committee. As the deputy leader, because of that issue that has that's taken him away. So we'll get straight on with the agenda. The minutes of the last meeting of the Policy Committee held on the 10th of February. Can I take those as true records? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. I've got obviously Councillor Ben Badley has sent his apologies, and Councillor Richard Butler is substituting for him. Dave Shaw sends his apologies for medical reasons. Councillor David Martin, is substituting. Councillor Kate Fole sends her apologies for medical reasons. There is no substitute. And Councillor Helen Ann Smith sends her apologies for the council business, and there is no substitute. Okay, so those are the apologies. As far as the attendance is concerned, yes. Just to make people aware, the back of the room, wearing a red and blue scarf, is Isabel Fleming, who is the new Director for Transformation and Change. We'll be dealing with all the issues with reference to transformation and change across the authority. We'll be cross-cutting across all our delivery areas, so you will all come across her at some stage when she wants to achieve something within your department. She'll be knocking on your door. So that's Isabel. So we welcome you, Isabel, to Nottinghamshire County Council. Okay, declarations of interest by members and officers. Are there any? No. Okay, we'll go straight then on to agenda item 4. It's the only agenda item on the well, for us today. It is the joint working programme, which Ben has been working extremely hard on. The update bit really is for just to show you where we are as far as the partnership is concerned, the collaborative working which is going on to obtain a possible devolution deal, and the proposed template which is in the yellow pages on your documents in front of you today. Nottinghamshire County Council, led by the leader, has been negotiating very closely with Nottingham City Council, Derbyshire County Council and Derby City Council and governance officials to explore the devolution deal and what is attainable. From my point of view, really, and from our group's point of view, I've been a councillor for nearly 23 years, and the number of times I have listened to leaders in this council of all colours, shapes and sizes who have been complained about not having enough money in the East Midlands, always being the poor partner, not having enough powers, all the powers being given to Birmingham and Manchester and the North East, and us getting a very bad deal from central government. Here is an opportunity for us to be able to change this, and I think we should be grasping it with both hands to achieve the most we can possibly get out of the process, and take advantage of government's compliance and its wanting to go down the devolution route. The government have forwarded us with a template. We won't be sending a copy of the completed template, obviously, till we've got agreement from the other 3 authorities, because we're working in conjunction with them, and that is why the recommendations are set out today as they are, because we can't promise anything until we have them signed off as far as the paperwork is concerned. So the report really seeks endorsement from you for the continuing inclusion of the Nottinghamshire districts and borough councils in the ongoing discussions on devolution. It's an extremely important part of our proposals. We recognise that we will have to work closely with the districts, and therefore we will have to have them on board as far as our proposals are concerned. And so, without more ado, I formally move the recommendation which is on page 4 of this report. Is there a seconder, please?
Formally second, Chairman, and reserve the right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Yes, Jason.
Thank you, Chair. With your indulgence, I'd like to move an amendment to item 3, which I think the monitoring officer is going to circulate. Thank you.
Yeah, can we have 10 minutes to just discuss these? Time out.
Yeah, we're just going to ask Jason to propose it first, and then I'll have a adjourn for 10 minutes so that you can have a look at it. Okay, happy with that?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just very quickly read it, propose it, and second it, and then we'll discuss it after that, German, if that's okay. So just to amend item 3 with, recognises the importance of borough and district councils as vital strategic partners. We will therefore only continue to pursue the level 3 devolution discussion by giving the guaranteed undertaking to all district and borough councils within Nottinghamshire that they will play a key and formally recognised role within any future combined authority. We will continue to state to the government during the ongoing discussions about devolution that this strategic partnership with our district and borough councils is our planned and unwavering objective. I'll move that as printed, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
I second that, Mr. Chairman, and reserve the right.
I've been asked for a 10-minute adjournment. All those in favour of 10-minute adjournment? Thank you very much. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. See you here. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your amendment. We're not prepared to accept it, and the reason why we're not prepared to accept it is because it substantially changes the recommendation, and as a result would mean that we would have to go back to the city, both cities and the county, to be able to put forward the changes to our recommendations that we're coming today, and so we're not prepared to go down that route. We've already got agreement from the three other upper tier authorities that we're all following the same line. We have attempted, as Ben has attempted, to keep both the borough and districts fully appraised of the negotiations that have taken place, and they are also aware of the likelihood of the powers that they will achieve if we end up going down a devolution route and we get agreement from government. So,
okay, so if the administration doesn't want to accept Jason's amendment, given that all councillors Zadrozny did was read it out, I think in the amendment that Jason's offered the opportunity to speak further and elaborate on what you've seen on the paper. So, with your indulgence, Chair, I think we should go back to Councillor Zadrozny, please.
Okay, Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I must express some disappointment. The Independent Alliance wrote the amendment to the motion in the spirit of the discussions that the leader of the council has been having with district and borough colleagues. And of course I sit here as a county councillor, but it's impossible for me not to recall my experience as the leader of Ashfield District Council and those conversations we've had with the leader of the county council, which in those discussions, mostly via informal EPC, but various other methods, including conversations with the chief executive and the minister, what we've written here has been that unwavering guarantee that district and borough councils are a strategic partner and that we'll be continued to be seen as a strategic partner. And of course, there's a huge conversation about the final governance arrangements of any proposed combined authority, but that throughout the county and throughout Derbyshire, district and borough councils would still be effectively sat around the table and be an important and vital role, particularly in the delivery arm of many of the services that the county council seeks to draw down from central government. To that end, I'm rather surprised that it's been chosen not to accept. I don't accept the argument that this would mean it would have to be taken back to partner organisations at the upper tier authorities, simply because this doesn't change anything that's been said to us through the economic prosperity committees or in any other formal and informal meetings where district and boroughs have been seen as the strategic partner, and it also raises very strong questions from my perspective, from the district council perspective, but also as a county councillor, about what is the then true intention of the administration if they're not willing to formalise that district councils are a key partner. And if we are formally a key partner, then there's no reason not to accept this. So it starts to then prickle up the hairs on the back of my neck. That is this what it says it is? Is it a devolution deal where we're talking about a new combined mayor and level 3 decentralisation of powers to this county, and then worked with our district and borough colleagues and the city councils to deliver better things? Or is this the start of a reorganisation plan, which of course is happening across a lot of the country? And I think there's a huge shame to sort of push to one side district and borough councils who have shown themselves to be the real arm of local delivery to our residents through the pandemic. They were the councils who were mostly on the front foot, and I recognise entirely what the county council did, particularly in social care. They did an outstanding job, but district councils were really there on the coal face. And of course, I say this a lot, Ashfield District Council, for example, takes 9% of the council tax, but delivers on average about 25% of frontline services directly to Ashfield residents. We've been shown district and borough councils across the UK that we are the real delivery arms. We are the ones with real relationships with local residents. We're the ones that are able to communicate, to accept problems and change at a much faster pace to deliver economic and social benefits to those residents, and to progress with this plan without formalising, without formally saying we recognise those district and borough colleagues. And I'm sure Simon in Rushcliffe and David in New would be really disappointed with Conservative members who don't recognise, don't want to formalise the work that those borough and district councils have done, as well as others, to get our county through the pandemic, and are willing to be at the table despite huge reservations, are willing to be at the table about level 3 devolution. And in fact, and Anthony may not say, but there's been private conversations with the minister where I've sat there with Ben and said to the minister, look, I'm the difficult customer in the room. I've got to be convinced that everything we're doing is entirely at the benefit of local residents. And for me, they're local residents in Ashfield, but of course across Nottinghamshire. And I'm the difficult customer in the room, but I'm here to support the county's objective, because if this gets done and this money and power comes to Nottinghamshire, that I'm behind it. And I've been the person there as the district rep, sticking up for the county council, making that argument. And I feel a little bit perturbed that the county council then don't want to recognise back that those strategic conversations that have happened early on and continuously, where we've been a critical friend but a very supportive partner as a district council throughout this process. And you know, there's lots and lots of work to do here. And I was just talking to my colleague in the interlude about the debate about devolution. And for me, I'm still concerned it's not devolution. I think it's decentralisation. There's not a huge amount of powers. There's a huge amount of new responsibilities. There's loads of stuff to wade through here over the coming year, 2 years, as we get that devolution of responsibilities from central government and how we change them. The District Councils Network, in fact, they had a conference on Monday, have done an enormous amount of work. There's lots of sage advice from people like Professor Colin Copus and other professors that spoke there. The Conservative chairman of the District Councils Networks, Sam Chapman-Allen, John Fuller was there. I was literally sat through the debate about devolution next to James Jameson. They're very big names in the Conservative Party who are talking about local government as a real family that's sitting around the table talking about our future together. And we know that bigger isn't always better. In fact, I think their new paper is bigger still isn't better. There's lots of us working on this to pick the bones out of it. And throughout that, the most crucial thing is trust now, that we can work together. And this amendment didn't seek to do anything else but then to bring those partners some confidence that you still treat them as partners. And that's why I'm incredibly disappointed. And I mean, I was here with not a pinched nose, but with still my reservations to vote for these recommendations on the basis that it's still the only game in town. Whatever the future of local government might be in 5 years or 10 years, if it brings more money and more responsibilities and benefits our county, then I'll do it. Whether it benefits me or not, I'll be there. But my still firm belief is that decisions are best made as close to those people who that they affect as possible. That's my fundamental politics. And even I was talking to Councillor Martin, you know, even his division of Selston has wildly different needs to my division of Ashfields, and we're only a couple of miles apart. So when councils are close to them and make decisions to them, then I think that's all for the better. And therefore I would really genuinely, openly ask Conservative members to reconsider, because there's no bear trap in this. There's no acid grenade. This is exactly what it says on the paper, that this council recognises the importance of our colleagues and will continue to work with them in that open dialogue. And that, as the leader has said privately and publicly in this chamber, it is our strategic aim to continue to work with those district colleagues. They bring a lot to the table, and therefore I ask respectfully, much more than usual, that you reconsider, because I think it's very important, the message that this council sends out today and the implications if it doesn't send out a unified message when future discussions are had with ministers and others over the coming weeks, because there are a lot of leaders and the mayor who have reservations, but we're sitting around the table to try and work through it together. And I think today is that opportunity to show that despite those reservations, that we're willing to take steps forward together as a local government family for the betterment of Nottinghamshire. And I really hope, Chairman, that you reconsider your position. Thank you.
Jason, I will ask when we bring in the corporate director for place to be able to explain within the proposals that we're putting forward to government where local government is entwined in the actual process and in the documentation to ensure that you understand that this is not, as you've intimated, about backtracking as far as our boroughs and districts are concerned. It is absolutely essential. There are essential building blocks of this process, mainly based on the fact with their expertise on planning and their ability to be able to operate in that environment. It is essential that they are valued partners within the process. Neil.
Thank you, Chairman. In fact, repeating back some of the words that Councillor Roslin has just said, and he quite rightly said that the leadership has said that it's the strategic aim to work with colleagues, and that remains the case. Even the original motion, I mean, it's quite clear. The request was that we formalise it. Well, the original number 3, that is formalising it, because it's quite clearly, as the words say, endorsing the continuing inclusion of the district and borough councillors, discussions about engagement. And it is incumbent upon all the district councils and boroughs to engage with the county and city councils to ensure that the discussions do continue in a constructive and proactive way. And by doing that, they will achieve the very things that Councillor Zadrozny has asked for, the money, the power, the benefits, that will be achieved by all colleagues working together. And I don't see the need for expanding on that number 3, because it does ensure, and it says, I repeat again, endorsing the continuing inclusion. So they must very much must be at the table and must continue with all the discussions. To then try and mention reorganisation again, a complete distraction from the whole aim and objectives of this project, which is to keep working together. It is that money, power and benefits and that investment to this area that we need to ensure we get. I've said it before and I'll say it again, enough is enough. The East Midlands lags way behind on investment. We need to not be that wilderness that is not invested in by government. The government has said that we must, if we are going to take this forward, then they have the rules there that they have set out, and that is what we are then responding to ensure that we can take these discussions forward and we can get exactly that money, power and benefits that has been mentioned in the amendment, that we can keep that that investment coming our way, and we must work together. So I repeat, it is incumbent upon all district councils to ensure that they do constructively and proactively engage in this debate. And I don't see the problem. Let's just all work together and let's get the benefits for those residents that have been mentioned, the residents and the businesses of our area. What better way can we achieve that by sticking together and just making sure that we engage with each other and get the best for our area we possibly can?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, before Councillor Zadrozny tabled the amendment, we got a question around clarity within the paper of the role of the districts, and what's clearly I don't sit in the economic development arm, and obviously, yeah, we've had briefings back from our leader, but it's not the same as actually being there and getting the full understanding. So sometimes it's very difficult when you get a paper like this to actually know all the nuances. And so that was one of the issues that we've got. And I think what we would say here is that you know, we would argue that, you know, there should be some formal recognition rather than what was said as about, you know, recognise, not reorganise. I think that's the name of the game. You know, what we would want to see is the districts recognised, and in reality, we wouldn't have to do any of this if the wherewithal was given to the counties and the districts to do the job. And we were given the wherewithal with the pandemic to do certain roles, and people delivered on that. So I think, you know, there is a way forward in all this, but as usual, there has to be strings. And clearly what the strings are is to look at something that wasn't there, I believe, at Christmas, which was a mayor. We're now, you know, in the last couple of months, a mayor has come into the sort of tying us down into that situation, which, you know, we were said it, I believe in this chamber, it was said by the leader at the time, no, you know, there's no truck for mayors. Yet here we are 2 months later on down the line, and now we've got mayor. So things are changing, and I think that it's quite right for Councillor Zadrozny to be cautious in his approach. And I think that the wording within here, that the districts and boroughs that they will play a key role and is formally recognised is not, you know, for me, is something that really ought to be accepted and be it. I welcome, you know, that you're saying, Councillor Lawton, that the districts are valued partners, but I think that sometimes people like to see that I dotted and it formally done. So, you know, from our point of view, is, as I say, we were going to ask that question. We were going to say, where are we? And clearly support that.
I'll bring in the officer, Glyn, straight away to talk about how the districts and boroughs are intertwined in the bid, which has been put in on Friday. Okay, do you want to, Adrian?
Yes, thank you. And to offer members some additional information in the context of the amendment, you might want me to discuss some of the other elements that are linked in the report when we get into the later debate. But on the point of engagement, let me offer a couple of inputs. Members will remember that we've used in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire the Economic Prosperity Committee as the vehicle through which we've been able to work with not just the district and boroughs, but the city. So we've had a joint endeavour across the county to form the underpinnings, the basis, the foundations for this work, and indeed have been meeting since last summer to focus on this. And of course, members in this committee received an update on that in December of last year, and saw the case for devolution. And see, Councillor Creamer has it in front of him. As you can see in the committee report, we've reached the stage now that we've had the invitation from government to progress our proposals. We've continued to use the Economic Prosperity Committee, both in a formal sense in public meetings, but also informally, so that the leaders of those 9 authorities have been working together on a regular basis. And certainly from a Nottinghamshire perspective, we've been able to then collect that information and insight and take that into the engagement with the other upper tiers and indeed with government. You can also see in the report there's a requirement now for us to complete a template, which is to respond to a number of questions that government have asked us. I recognise, members, you don't have that template in front of you today. As Councillor Lawton said, it's not complete. Our commitment is to circulate that as soon as it is. However, the Economic Prosperity Committee have done a page turner on the template in recent weeks, and I know that chief execs as well across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire have continued to work together to form the basis of the information in the template. Now, one of the sections in the template is particularly about this topic, this issue of governance, and there's an invitation in the template from government to set out how we would take forward our proposals around governance. The approach that we've taken as a partnership across Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire at this point is not to get into a detailed and prescriptive description of the future governance, because we recognise firstly that we want to do that together, and secondly we recognise that's going to take some time. And of course the government are proposing to legislate and bring forward a new model of combined authority, so we need to do that in parallel. I think that's the purpose of Pathfinders. So the approach we've taken, which I believe the Economic Prosperity Committee have helped inform, is to set out a number of principles that will act as the guide or the framework within which our governance proposals will come forward. And those include the principles that government have already laid out around effective leadership, a sensible geography, flexibility, strong accountability, but locally we've proposed to add some additional principles, the first of which is inclusivity. And we absolutely recognise and value the input of all of the local authorities, district and borough, county and city partners, and so set out as a core principle for our governance that inclusivity will form the basis of proposals we bring forward. The second is subsidiarity. So again, recognising the point that decisions and activities should take place as close to residents and businesses as is possible. I think that's again an important bit of learning that we have from other combined authorities already in existence. And then another which is relevant to this discussion is around commissioning. So that's recognising that there might be powers and functions and responsibilities that come from government down to a combined authority, but recognising that if we have a principle of governance around commissioning, those powers can then be commissioned into constituent local authority partners, be they at upper or district and borough tier level. So just to give members some additional insight into the approach we're taking so far, recognising some of you will have seen some of that with other hats on, but I'm conscious you haven't got all of that information in front of you today. But hopefully that's helpful.
Just going to bring the Chief Executive in because obviously met with the Minister on Monday, see whether he's got any further input on it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Councillor Zadrozny is right in reminding us that we also met with the Minister, I think it was late November, Jason from memory, and we had a discussion about how district and borough councils will be included in the predecessor arrangements, which were, as people might recall, county-based. We had a further meeting with the Minister on Monday, the upper tier leaders and chief executives, to talk about the new iteration of the deal, which you referenced, Councillor Guilfoyle, is a level 3 mayoral combined authority deal. And the first order of business was how we would meaningfully include all councils. So particularly in this case, our district and boroughs. So just to give Jason a reassurance that that got a very good airing. All the upper tier leaders gave a very strong commitment to the continuing inclusion of the district and borough councils, not just in the discussions, but in finding a model of governance which suits the circumstances of a two-tier area with two cities. And clearly, as the chairman has said, when district and borough councils hold valuable powers, resources and statutory functions, we could, of course, construct a governance arrangement where the mayor doesn't have access to those if we don't involve district and boroughs and they don't feel that they're properly included. So there's an intention to make sure that doesn't happen, and we set up a combined authority that suits everybody, because if we suit all stakeholders, in theory at least, it would be better for local residents. So that commitment was given both from the leaders, but also it came back from the Minister that we should work together, all councils, not just the upper tiers, on trying to find that sweet spot of governance that includes everybody, but at the same time enables business to be undertaken.
Keith?
Yeah, thank you. If you look around this room, to be fair, and the amount of us that sat here that are also district and borough councillors, I think you should sort of be able to see
the value we put on those districts and boroughs in terms of what they deliver. And the proof in the pudding for me, having both hats, is the way in which this administration, under the leadership of Ben Bradley, has sought to engage with all districts and boroughs, not just in this, but in all sorts of other areas. Indeed, I think I think Neil and myself have gone round to see all our counterparts that do the jobs in those districts and boroughs, so we can see where we can actually work together closer. So, you know, the intent of this council is actually by its actions, and I think this what we've put forward as the motion here demonstrates that continued commitment. You know, because there has been some right things said here. You know, the districts and boroughs are good at things like business engagement. You know, they're on the front line of that. And if you take sort of Neilk and Sherd, for example, they came top in the country for distributing the money out during the pandemic. You know, and there was a lot of hard work done by actually a very small team within that district. And other district boroughs have worked really hard to make sure business have been supported with that. And you know, shaping places, they're good at that because they know their patch. Well, we'd be daft not to link in with that. We'd be daft to sort of try and dictate what's going to happen in a certain area without including them and getting their feedback. You know, things like crime reduction. I was with Homes England yesterday, and the chairman of Homes England said he doesn't like cul-de-sacs. He likes it so that people can go get through places. Until I pointed out to him, well, I represent an area that's got that sort of thing, and you try catching the little criminals when they're running away from the police if they've got loads of ways to escape. So it's all about that local knowledge that's really, really important, and that needs to feed into the whole thing that we're trying to achieve. And to me, this is going to bring in all the money, the power, and the responsibility to us. And it's incumbent on us all to make sure that we then deliver on that. So to me, I think the amendment is unnecessary. I think we're demonstrating all the time that we work well with districts and boroughs. Districts and boroughs have all the opportunity to influence the setting up of the structure, and because we'll be doing the same thing from the Neilk and Sherd point of view. So I can't support the amendment. I'm sorry, Jason.
Just very quickly. I mean, everybody seems to agree here, and I agree as well, that the districts and the county work well together, and districts are really crucial on the ground. And as quite rightly said, Newark has actually put out to businesses the funding. So has Gedling. So has all the districts. So, being as we're all in agreement, and it's this is one of the most important decisions we're going to be actually making when the final decision comes. I don't see any big problem in actually formally recognising just how important our partners are at the districts. And as has already been said, I'm a twin hat, so yes, I do have an interest in both camps. But because such a big decision, county-wide stroke 2 counties-wise, I think it would actually just be politics with a small p to just literally recognise the importance at this stage of the actual districts. So when it comes to working together in 3, 4, 5 years' time under whatever this new authority or new district or new area is called, they formally recognise it's one of the most important bits. People can be too high up and actually forget just how important the people or the areas at the bottom are, that without them everything stops. So again, we're all in agreement, so I can't see any real problem with just accepting this as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, I really don't think this amendment is necessary, because for me there are two very important and helpful paragraphs in the report that proves that point, and that is paragraph 18 reminds us as to why we're going down or wanting to go down the devolution route in the first place. which is changing things for the better of local people and local businesses and residents. It says it there in black and white, and it says quite clearly in paragraph 9 that the excellent collaborative work taking place in partnership with city, district and borough councils across Nottinghamshire has the potential to secure better outcomes, value for money for local taxpayers through public sector reform and efficiencies. So it's, what we're wanting to do, it says in the report anyway. So really just sort of making an alteration to a third part of the recommendation, I don't really think will make any difference because the commitment is there to work with the district and borough councils and to recognise them, and we're saying that several times over. So, Mr. Chairman, I really don't think the amendment is necessary. Thank you.
Right, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must say I'm disappointed that before we actually debated the item, you came in and announced that it would be rejected. I think we recognise that most of the councillors, if not all of the councillors here on the policy committee, are also district and borough councillors. So I know that we all have a commitment to that level of government. But I think we have to appreciate that this is a top-down initiative, if not reorganisation, and it's coming down from the government. We know the government want executive mayors or whatever description they may choose. And it's easy in a meeting like this for us to be reassured by colleagues and indeed the professionals who I absolutely accept are speaking to us with complete honesty and openness. And the difficulty I have is that this is an opportunity for the area, in this case Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, to finally sort of, get involved with the powers that other areas have got. The West Midlands and Manchester being notable examples. But I think the amendment is about detail, and it's very difficult to argue about another level of local government to residents in our local communities, and they're not convinced. It is very to sell it. And I think by reassuring them that we absolutely, in black and white, value the contribution of districts and boroughs, written into the recommendation, will provide that level of reassurance to the public that we are committed to government at local level. And this is just not another form of sort of semi-centralisation. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that you've indicated that your group won't support this amendment. I did think it was a reasonable a reasonable amendment without handcuffs, but there we are. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, first of all, can I agree with Councillor Creamer when he talks about formally recognising the importance of borough and district councils as strategic partners? I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But what we're being asked to formally recognise here is something somewhat different. I always enjoy listening to Councillor Zadrozny when he speaks. Sometimes he speaks loudly. Sometimes he speaks softly, in honeyed tones. When he speaks loudly, I'm less inclined to listen. because there's usually less content in it. When he speaks in honeyed tones, I listen very carefully, because then he reminds me very much of a character in Jungle Book. If you recall, spoke to Mowgli, and I don't remember the character's name, it's many years since I watched it with my children, but it was was it Yeah, thank you. Look at me, listen to me. Speaking, I didn't mention any particular, I mentioned a character. But the point I'm making is, when those honeyed tones are used, we need to listen. And the point that was made just now by Francis Perdue Horan was talking about the detail. Well, that's exactly why we can't accept this amendment, because the detail is contained within the paragraph. When you start to use words such as guaranteed undertaking, key and formally recognised role. Well, what is a guaranteed undertaking? And more importantly, what is a key and formally recognised role? Now, that can take many forms. That's open to interpretation. My view of what is a key and formally recognised role will probably differ a great deal to what Councillor Zadrozny's interpretation of a key and formally recognised role might be, because that's not specified in this amendment. We're actually operating under legislation here which recognises the role of the upper tier authorities and hopes for a contribution, a meaningful contribution from district and borough councils. Nobody in my time in this chamber has gone to any greater lengths than our current leader to involve district and borough council elections in what we are trying to do across the board here since last May, not just in this issue of devolution. So the offer is there. You only have to look at the recommendations. It's clear that that's formal enough for me. Endorses the continuing inclusion of Nottinghamshire's district and borough councils in the ongoing discussions about devolution. Now, I think that's as formal as we ought to be making it, because my worry and my concern with the detail and the honeyed tones is that what we'll be looking at here is a means to muddy the water. We'll be looking at making this authority a hostage to fortune. We'll potentially be giving other partners, who are very important, the power of a veto. Councillor Zadrozny said, this is not devolution, it's decentralisation. Well, decentralisation is devolution. Centralisation is the opposite to devolution. Totally lost me there, but honeyed words, and if you listen to them in isolation, you think very reasonable. But look at the detail. The recommendations does what it says on the tin. Endorses the continuing inclusion of Nottinghamshire's district and borough councils in the ongoing discussions about devolution. And I think that at this stage of the process, that's sufficient detail. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, can I just do a point of clarification?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I was excited about remembering it was a snake, not calling Jason a snake, because I was impressed that my memory went back that far. So it wasn't aimed at you. I was just excited about remembering it was the snake with the eyes. That's all, Jason.
I'd just like to point out that he's now got the right to sum up.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. I only want to ask a question, and I was allowing the debate to go, and I wondered before we sum up that I could just ask a question, please.
Yeah, go for it, John.
At the beginning of the meeting, early on in the meeting, we said that the upper tier authorities and the chief executives have agreed the recommendations and the paper coming here today. Surely we are going to have to go back, if we were ever to change an amendment, whatever it is, that we would have to go back to those upper tier authorities and those chief executives to change it. Would that then delay the process that we're doing?
Chief Executive.
So we're speaking to the amendment now. We've got broad agreement across the upper tiers that we will engage district and borough councils in a way which suits local circumstances. We've chosen to bring a report to policy committee. Anything that substantially changed the character of that agreement, I think we would be duty bound to return to the table. In truth, I'm not sure that Jason's amendment would do that. I think it's in the spirit of those conversations. I think it's pushing the envelope, but in the end, it's up for members to determine whether they support or otherwise what Jason has said on the terms of this council. So I think you can continue the debate, come to a conclusion. If the motion was passed, I think we would, out of courtesy, go back to those partners. And I'm sure when Adrian gets around to telling us how we're going to conclude and submit the pro forma, it will become clear that it wouldn't make a substantive difference.
Jason?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not entirely sure where to start because up until Councillor Barnfather spoke, I was very much welcoming the assertions from members and officers that the intent of the original motion was still very much to keep district partners around the table, and I think members across the chamber recognise their value and their importance, but they have a different view about how formally their relationship should be with whatever comes in the form of a combined authority. And my huge concern is that we are attempting to build an authority around the personality of the current administration, which is much more collaborative. It's much more friendly and open, and even where we disagree, we can do it in a much more grown-up way. And you know, Councillor Bradley may well be up with the Stamp King in Mansfield measuring up for his mayoral chains, but he's not guaranteed to have that post. And we've seen today how busy and his roles already are. That he's not able to be here because there's other important matters he has to attend to. And these are really crucial times for us, and whoever will be the mayor is really crucial. But we can't build a set of principles around a personality. We need some guarantees there that district and boroughs will be recognised, whoever that might be. And I'm really glad Councillor Barnfather started talking about Kipling. I'm a literist. I love Kipling. Now, you've got me wrong with being Carr, but look at me. But I'm much more like Colonel Haythie, who was the elephant, because I never forget. And I'm getting much more like him anyway. But there were lots of welcome platitudes from members in this chamber from the administrative side, speaking very warmly about the work of district and boroughs, and they were from the same councillors who 12 months ago, 18 months ago, were speaking about how local government reorganisation was a really welcome. District and boroughs didn't need to be there, and so I welcome this road to Damascus, that district and boroughs are vital. But there were a number of things. I mean, I think what Councillor Barnfather said, look, we're trying to muddy the water. I think I've come in like a Brita filter. We're trying to make it much more clear that it's not just about what the original recommendation said, that district and boroughs will be part of the discussion, will just be spoken to. And what our amendment seeks to do is to say more than that. We will continue to be formal partners. And we've not said in whichever way. That'll be entirely down to the EPC and particularly the leader and the cabinet to decide what that level is. But they're formally partners, not just sat at the table to be spoken to, but they'll be there formally infinitum, and I think that's really important. I think that's much clearer than making it muddier. And you may think that's a honeycomb to try and trick you, but there's no handcuff in this. There's nothing in there. It literally just says district and boroughs will be sat at the table throughout this process, not just for a discussion, but formally. And I think that was, really important, because you said it does what it says on the tin, and it does. But what it says on the tin is, we'll just have a chat with you. It doesn't say you're important and you'll be sat round every table talking to us. Of course, district and boroughs, and I speak to them of all colours. We have our district leader meetings regularly, and the EPCs. None of us think we can win the debate on everything or anything, but we think that district and boroughs should be there to be part of that debate formally all the time because we want to be a formal partner. And I really do ask again. I don't want to labour on it because I think there's lots of stuff that we've had and a good debate. And I thank members for a more warm-spirited debate than normal. But I honestly think this is important, and I would ask members of the administration to consider again, look at the wording very carefully. The chief officer has accepted that this won't delay any of the process, and that our intention is, maybe for the first time, but very genuinely honourable, to do something good that can progress this in the way that the administration really wants to. And I do think if Councillor Bradley had been sat here today, he perhaps would have looked at this differently than the members in this chamber. So please, I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, before we have the vote, members to reconsider their position and look at something that's a bit more collaborative. Thank you.
Okay, right. From the chair, after the vote, I propose a short adjournment to explore a compromise position by means of an alteration to the recommendation. 3, to the substantive motion that will not facilitate us going back to our partners to be able to get approval of that recommendation. So, so I'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment, please. Okay. All those against? The amendment falls. Okay, so we're going to have a short adjournment if that's okay. Can I have a show of hands? Just literally a couple of minutes. Yeah, can I have Jason and somebody from the Labour group? Right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. In light of the discussions we've been having, I propose that we change recommendation 3 to, I read, recognises the importance of and endorses the continuing inclusion of Nottinghamshire District and Borough Councils in the ongoing discussions about devolution. What it does is just basically beef up recommendation 3. So, do I have a seconder to that, please?
Yeah, formally second.
Thank you very much. So what I intend to do now is bring in the corporate director for Place, who is just going to fill us in exactly where we are and what the situation is as far as the devolution deal is concerned, and then we'll debate the situation, and there's a point of clarification which has been required by the Labour group, which will be dealt with by the chief executive. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, as I said a little earlier on, I can offer you an update on where we're at with progress in developing the template. It's referred to in paragraphs 10 and 11 in the report. The template itself is split into 3 sections. Some core information that we need to provide about who they're talking to, contact details and the like, a section around governance, of which I've already given you an overview of the kind of principles that we're proposing to lock in and the approach that we're planning to take. And then the third section is all around the kinds of powers and flexibilities that we would be seeking as a partnership from. So members have got already in front of them in the appendix to the report, the committee report, the table that was published in the Levelling Up White Paper, which sets out the different tools and powers that are on offer from government at the various levels. And of course, as you're aware, we are proposing to go to level 3, combined authority with an elected mayor. Now, there are a whole range of provisions set out under each of those lines in that appendix, but let me give you a flavour of the kinds of tools and powers which are broadly split into sections around supporting business, sustainable transport, skills and employment, infrastructure and economic investment, and then provisions that facilitate enhanced collaboration and partnership working. So just to run through some of those and give you a flavour, as I said, we'll circulate this to you as soon as it's complete. Fair to say it's changing by the hour. So firstly, around support for local businesses, it's been well trailed in the white paper following a review of local enterprise partnerships that those areas that bring forward a level 3 deal would have scope to include and host the LEP functions within their combined authority. Within the template, we are recognising the good work that the D2N2 LEP have done over the years, particularly in terms of engaging with local business, bringing business voice to the fore, whether that's some of our very large business or some of our SMEs across the patch. And we're proposing that we would want to take and host those LEP functions, but we're proposing that we would do that in partnership with the current LEP board and executive to undertake an options appraisal to determine the most appropriate form and function of incorporating those business support functions in our combined authority. In terms of sustainable transport, there's a fairly boilerplated offer here now, which you can see in all of the mayoral combined authorities, but to draw out some of the things that would really matter to us, and it picks up on a number of the debates that we've had in the Transport and Environment Committee. So there'd be an opportunity to pull down from the Department of Transport responsibility for setting the strategic cycle network, for example, and pooling and bringing together the active travel fund. Now, members in the chamber will know that we've been, as a local highway authority, over recent years, various stages for active travel fund in tranches and bid for individual projects. You know, members have often cited their concerns about an inability to see the cycle network as a whole and be able to make strategic investments. This power would allow the combined authority to bring that power down from government and kind of more localise that investment. There's provisions here not only to accelerate the rollout of our bus service improvement plans, which again members will know we submitted last year, but also the scope here for bus franchising powers. Now, in some respects, that will only be necessary where there is market failure, but we know particularly in parts of the county where we've got real concern about commercial viability in some of our bus routes, these powers would be very helpful for us to have more localised. The scope in here for developing an integrated and strategic transport plan across the wider patch. And again, I think that's helpful when you think about the economic geography that we're talking here, given the travel to work patterns which regularly cross our borders between Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, and the travel that takes place between Nottingham and Derby City as well. So all in all, those sorts of things would allow us to have a much more integrated and better planned transport and public transport network, and allow us to localise and bring down some of the funds that the Department of Transport have that we currently bid for in a kind of rolling bidding round. There's also a set of provisions that we are putting in our bid here around how we would work with government on the implementation of the integrated rail plan. So members will remember, it's been well debated in this chamber, that there were a series of provisions in there, not just about HS2, but Midland Main Line electrification and other rail projects, whether that's Robin Hood Line or Maid Marian Line. And there's scope within those sustainable transport here to give the region a stronger role and voice in terms of rail and indeed rail partnerships, which speaks to things like reopening of stations, reopening of lines. I think it's fair to say as well, something that's relatively unique in our bid is we're using this as a tool to back Derby's bid to host the headquarters of Great British Railways in future. Just a couple more points on the Transport Fund, which again, I think members in this chamber will recognise as benefits. I've mentioned the Active Travel Fund, but it's also notable that whilst we as a highway authority have been able to receive a 3-year funding settlement from government, something which was welcomed at Transport and Environment Committee earlier this week, areas that are in mayoral combined authorities are able to receive 5-year settlements. So again, gives us greater scope, gives us greater certainty, would certainly help with better planning, coordination, delivery of road investment and maintenance. And the last point I would mention is just around electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Again, members know that the way we've had to approach this over recent years is to wait for bidding rounds to open, pull together business cases and try and take those forward, often in a fragmented way. The scope here for us to do a deal with DFT and the Office for Electric Vehicle Charging in order to have a much more progressive and phased rollout of on-street charging infrastructure. In the areas around employment and skills, we've got a lot of proposals here which ultimately speak to bringing down the power for the commissioning of skills programs, but also the funding, which currently resides with the likes of the Department for Education, and to be able to better match the kinds of skills needs that our SMEs, but also some of our bigger industrial sectors need, so that we can try and support people to access the kind of job opportunities that are coming forward, either through things like provision of short courses, pre-apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship programs, and so on. And we're particularly highlighting in our bid the emerging green industries that we're starting to see across D2N2. And in fact, this builds on some of the work that was done in our local industrial strategy by the LEP, but it also speaks to things like the bid that we have for the STEP Fusion power demonstrator up in West Burton, where with these powers we'd be able to more proactively target skills interventions and have greater control and oversight of the local skills improvement plan, so that we're targeting the money to support our local residents to benefit from those job opportunities. Linked to the skills piece is the piece around employment. And we know we've got very good working relationships with the Department for Work and Pensions locally and across the D2N2 patch, but there's significant scope here for us to get into a co-design and a co-commissioning relationship with DWP, so that we can take that national funding that the Department for Work and Pensions have to support employment development, but again to localise it so that it's supporting our local people with the kinds of job opportunities which are available to them in their patch. In terms of some of the work around infrastructure, let me highlight 2 things. So firstly, around the Development Corporation. Members in the Chamber are well aware that we've been working for what 2-3 years now on bringing forward a new model of development cooperation in partnership with our district and borough partners in Rushcliffe and Broxtowe, and also in North West Leicestershire and Leicestershire. There's an opportunity here with the combined authority to create mayoral development corporations, and we're working with government to try and understand how in parallel we can continue to explore the new model of locally led urban development corporation that we've been bringing forward. There's significant scope and opportunity for our partners in Nottingham, Derby and Derbyshire who are not currently within the development corporation, but it's that detail that we're trying to work through at the moment with government officials and our partners. Building on the point Councillor Girling made a little earlier on, we did meet with Chairman of Homes England yesterday, and one of the things we were exploring is the relationship that we could have with Homes England, which again would move beyond a kind of transactional relationship, bidding for funding on a kind of case by case or project by project basis. And through the combined authority, the opportunity is to bring down a pool of, for example, brownfield funding. If you look at in the West Midlands, recently they secured a land remediation fund that was devolved down to the combined authority for them to use and commission at a more local level, where they have a better understanding of the needs and opportunities. But for us, that might allow a brownfield new build programme. It might allow us to do more of the work we've started around decarbonisation of social housing and housing more generally, carbon retrofit, and it might also allow us to accelerate some of our work on housing to meet people with the needs of people with particular needs or vulnerabilities, so the work we've brought forward in adults and children in particular. And we're also seeking to use this as an opportunity to further grow the growing industry that we have in the region around modern methods of construction. Just to mention a couple of other things, I've flagged economic investment. Now within here there is significant scope for us to secure a long-term investment fund. Again, if you look at the existing combined authorities, whether in West Midlands, Manchester, Cambridge and Peterborough, each of them was created with a kind of gain share pot, a long-term investment fund. I think just over £1 billion in the West Midlands, I think 800 million or so in Cambridge and Peterborough. And effectively what we're saying in our bid here is we would want a comparator fund, recognising our combined authority would have a population of 2.2 million people. That would be one of the largest. It's a big combined authority, so therefore we'd expect a commensurate level of investment from government to be pooled and put into our pipeline. And last point, I mentioned opportunities for improved collaboration and joint working. So a whole range of other things that sit out with that table that government published in the white paper that we're continuing to pursue. Particular priority that was brought forward by the Economic Prosperity Committee and the work in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire was around youth. So youth and families, trying to build on the kind of universal youth services offer that we have already in the County Council, but to look at things like careers advice and support, and to try and grow out that package working with National Youth Agency. And there are other projects like that that have been coming forward in Derby and Derbyshire, which pick up things like crime and antisocial behaviour, homelessness, and health and well-being more generally. Those areas and those proposals are probably, it's fair to say, still in gestation. We're still working through those and trying to bring the wider partnership together, but really we need first contact with government to be able to explore what the opportunity is there, given that they aren't powers that were listed in the white paper that you've got in your appendix. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of the kind of powers, flexibilities, funds that we're pitching for, all of which kind of land in our ambition to try and improve prosperity, the environment and the kind of health and well-being of our population. Hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Right, I'm going to open it up to the floor. Anybody else want to say anything about the substantive motion? Any comments? Anybody? Michelle? Michelle, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to publicly have some clarity with regards to recommendation 2 about the potential level 3 devolution deal. Previously, when we talked about the amendment, you were quite categorically clear that all of the borough and districts were on board with this. Can I have that categorically confirmed in public, please? Because that's not necessarily the information that I've personally received. So if I could get some clarity on that, and then may I speak a little bit after that, if that's okay? Thank
Of course,
you.
obviously, the negotiations have been carried out by Ben, the Chief Executive. So I'll ask the Chief Executive to comment on that, on recommendation 2, and then bring you back in again.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Councillor Welsh. What I'll do is explain the process we've used rather than answer the question directly. So in the report, at paragraph 11, it importantly says that submission of the template doesn't commit any council to a course of action. So where we are in the negotiations is a formative stage. No council has to commit to either a level 3 deal formally or any form of governance, because at this stage it's early days. When we circulate the template after its completion, you will see at the beginning of the template it sets out very clearly governments see the template as a starting point. It's not a binding document. So the process we've used to get sign off on the template is we drafted it, and then I met with all the district and borough council chief executives and went through it line by line about 3 weeks ago. And then here in the Rufford Suite on Friday of last week, we took the same approach with the leaders of the district and borough councils. In that instance, Councillor Payne came along for Gedling. I think Councillor Greaves gave his apologies, but his chief executive was in the room. And in going through it line by line, district and borough councils therefore have seen the provisional commitment to a level 3 devolution deal with a mayor. But go back to paragraph 11, they've given provisional commitment to that. No council has yet signed that off, because the process from now on would include intense negotiations about the model of governance. It's back to Councillor Zadrozny's point, and therefore, in the case of Gedling, Councillor Clark and his colleagues would need to weigh up whether they think a level 3 mayoral devolution deal as to sign up to it. And that, I think, is still some way off. However, I should also caveat it by saying, under the current government proposals, although it would be fantastic if all of our districts and boroughs, there would be 15 of them across the footprint, gave it a ringing endorsement, technically we understand that that won't be necessary for a combined authorities amendment, given the circumstances, both Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, particularly in Nottinghamshire, where there is no homogenous political group that controls our district and boroughs. It's very split across our district and boroughs, from independently led, led with a directly elected mayor, traditional Labour and Conservative led. Clearly what we're seeking is consensus. So at the moment, this document doesn't commit anyone. The leaders have seen it, they've been through it. They'll get a copy of the finished version as soon as it's submitted, as will policy committee, but formal commitment and sign off is still some way down the track.
Does that answer your question? Right.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but first I just want to make a substantive point from my own personal being, is that I'm not anti-devolution at any point, and I shouldn't sit here and say that I'm anti-devolution, because I've worked within a devolved area and I've actually seen the huge benefits that it can have for communities. But I've seen the pros and I've seen the cons, and we have to be very honest and transparent about what devolution does and doesn't mean, and there are still many obstacles. It doesn't mean you're going to get all of the money that you need for those communities. A lot of us will remember Andy Burnham finding out in front of TV cameras that his COVID was going to cut 43 million by Boris Johnson, literally there and then. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to get the funding, but it does without doubt place and will place Nottinghamshire on a better footing. And if we want to run with the big ones and the big deliverers, then we have to move forward with regards to governance. There's no doubt in my mind with regards to that. how that transpires and what that looks about is about us continuing to have that healthy discussion. As a member, I don't feel I've necessarily had enough information with regards to the process, and I'm not sure how that information would necessarily get devolved down to me. I'm not a twin hatter, so I don't get the, you know, what's happening at the borough or the district necessarily. So actually seeing this report was quite difficult for me to make an informed an opinion on it. So I would appreciate in the future if there's a way of disseminating more of the information before the report, so we can make a valid a judgment with regards to it. So the other question is, we've gone from the no mayor to the possibility of the mayor. I was just wondering when that information was going to get out to the public, and how you as a council were going to start those discussions with the communities, because no doubt today the media are going to pick up on what has been said today, and no doubt, like the last time it was just, I will be contacted by local residents as to, we thought it was nowhere, and that now it's a mess. So the comms strategy around this and how we communicate, it's not only valuable to the public but to us as well. Like what are you saying to people, and how are you saying it, and how can we get that information? So that's really important. And last but not least, in devolution, it's obviously not just councils that are involved, are it, especially if you're on level 3. So level 3 actually involves the devolution of police powers, which means that the Police and Crime Commissioner would cease to exist. So I was wondering what the Police and Crime Commissioner thought about these proposals, and how much she has been involved with regards to this, because that is another big change for Nottinghamshire, and it's something that we should be getting out to the public as well, because her role recently has actually brought in some significant funding to Nottinghamshire, including the area of Gedling. So I'd just like to know where that fits into the grand scale of things with regards to your planning. And then last but not least, the thing that I feel really passionately about, which I was involved with, is the devolved powers with regards to public health. I think that has a huge potential to make massive differences in our communities. So the public health area for me is something that I think we need to keep at the forefront, as well as the economic development and infrastructure of transport, etc. Public health has a huge potential when we look at the differences between how long people live in Rushcliffe to how long people live in Mansfield, and our health inequalities that exist in Nottinghamshire. There's huge potential there to make huge changes.
I mean, from the chair, I'll answer a couple of the questions and then pass you over to the chief executive. With reference to the public health, totally agree with you. I'm sure, well, I know it's on Ben's radar, and it's been part and parcel of the negotiations. The second point is that the chief executive has already spoken to your leader with a view to coming and speaking to the Labour group if there are any future, as the future develops, to keep you on track all the way through the process, as it will do to Jason as well, to make sure that you're an integral part of the decision-making process and you understand exactly how far and where we're going, so that you can scrutinise the process as it moves along. Chief Executive.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, of course, with the Police and Crime Commissioner, Councillor Welsh, there are 2 within the footprint of the proposed devolution deal, so I certainly can't speak for Derbyshire. I can tell you that the leader and I met with the Police and Crime Commissioner for Nottinghamshire on Monday and agreed that we should look at the options which are available to us to include the powers of the Crime Commissioner in a devolution deal, but not make a judgment at this stage as to how they might be brought down in detail. Because, of course, if you tick the box for the Police and Crime Commissioner powers for a deal across a Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire footprint, technically you're speaking on behalf of both counties and cities, and we're not at that position yet. What we've agreed with the Police and Crime Commissioner is that we will work both with Caroline Henry and her counterpart in Derbyshire, and that's a matter initially, I think, for the political leaders in Derby to consider what options are available. And we've made the same commitment to the local enterprise partnership. You will have seen from the matrix that devolution deals can subsume the powers and resources of a local enterprise partnership in at level 3. It's slightly simpler because that's on an aligned footprint. But again, the agreement we've struck with the chair of the LEP and the LEP board I went to let board yesterday is that we will undertake an options appraisal, because if you look up and down devolution deals, and I know that you've worked within devolved administration, there are different models for incorporating things like the powers of the Police and Crime Commissioner, the powers of the LEP. Remember what I said about this document, it's a starting point. There would have to be intensive negotiation around those issues, and you will know from your work in Greater Manchester, eventually, if powers that are currently held by government are devolved to a mayor, the cabinet member responsible in government has to sign that off. So if you're going to convince government that you should take powers, let's say, for example, of the LEP, you've also got to convince the appropriate Secretary of State. So we're at very early stages of that, but those stakeholders have been engaging in conversations and they've committed to being engaged as the negotiations go on.
Any other comments before I go to the votes? No? Okay. Ben can keep his job. I've got no aspirations of grandeur. Right. All those in favour of the recommendation? It is unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.